Right now, we're doing virtual interviews, so we're doing them via Zoom. And frankly, it's working pretty well, though, as Theo Turner just shared with us there, the director of your Multicultural Center for Student Leadership and Engagement. We're kind of sometimes a little bit sick of Zoom because it really takes a lot of energy to be on Zoom all day, right, for meetings. And I won't go into the reasons for that unless somebody wants to hear them, but I think we could probably identify those. So some additional statistics. 61% of those who are using video when screening candidates, and some are using texting, only about 27%. So I think that would be kind of odd. Some are using chatbots, only 8%, to facilitate their initial candidate screening. And then 73% are using video to onboard new employees, which I think is also interesting because we again, in the Career Center have talked about how can we possibly bring a new employee onto our team when we're not on campus. So we're not quite sure how we'll make that happen, but perhaps virtually like some of these other employers are doing. And then more than half of respondents say that they are continuing to use traditional means of communication by simply making more phone calls. So sometimes a phone call is welcome. Right now, it didn't used to be that we wanted to do phone calls, but sometimes that's a welcome change from the Zoom. The majority of employers are still evaluating the impact of their hiring plans. So only a small minority have actually decided to reduce hiring. So I believe there's this I don't know if it's a fear or a concern at the very least among many people out there right now, whether it's soon-to-be college graduates, recent college graduates, those who might be in the midst of making a career change, maybe some of your parents and family members, concerned about whether or not there will be employment. But the bottom line is people are still hiring. So I want to make sure that we put that message out there. So I'll probably say that more than once tonight. But I said I would only share a few statistics, so I won't go into a whole lot more, but 82% of all jobs and 52% of all internships being posted right now are for full-time positions. So that's good news too. Now I understand that some folks have had internship offers that have been rescinded. I've heard that some people have had new job offers. Some people have actually resigned from positions to accept a new position with another organization, and those positions are rescinded. So have any of you experienced anything like that? Feel free to unmute or raise your hand or whatever. Anyone?
I've just been hearing that a lot of institutions where I've been applying are under hiring freezes, and they're not putting up as many positions as they typically would at this point in the academic year.
Yeah, that's true, especially in higher ed. And Sarah, I think you're looking in higher ed, right?
Yes, mainly in higher ed. I'm starting to expand my search a little bit broader, maybe into like private sector, other nonprofits focusing on education, but just to see what I can find, basically.
Right, and that's not a bad strategy at all, because it doesn't have to be permanent, and sometimes that's how we find what our niche is anyhow, because we're trying different things. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share in that regard? What we know too about, and feel free to interrupt me at any point with thoughts, please, or questions. What we know as well is relative to internships in particular is that some of them are being done virtually or remotely. Many of them are with the ones that are continuing but are going to be face-to-face, many employers have just delayed the start date. So I'll use the example of one of my sons who's a junior in college, and he's going to do an internship this summer with PNC. He was originally starting, typically, as most do, say the end of May, beginning of June, but as it is now, they won't start until toward the end of June, and they will only go about 4 weeks. I think they're only doing, I forget now, but it's 4 to 6 weeks. So you just have some of those timelines shifting a bit, but at least they're still able to do the internship again, whether it's just a shorter amount of time or if it is just perhaps virtual. Some people are not able to do a virtual internship, so they just have to delay their internship or cancel it altogether, and that's unfortunate. So valuable. But when I look at all of the statistics that I looked at, and I know Kelsey looked at some as well, what we're seeing is that yes, we know the unemployment rate is up right now. Well, that's to be expected. I don't see how it could be any other way. At the same time, we know that employers are continuing to hire. And while I don't have this information pulled up right now, we have access to a tool called EMSI, EMSI, and it's basically economic modeling. It's an economic modeling platform. And when I say we have access, I'm talking about we have like 2 licenses at IUP because they're a little pricey, so we can't buy a bunch of them. But so if you had questions about a particular area that you had, whether it's a geographic region or a particular industry that you have interest in, then we can look information up about that. You can also use resources, and I'm going to talk about some of those resources now, actually. There are so many different job search platforms and I'm going to skip considerations for right now. Job search platforms, resources, and different assistance that people can provide to those who are interested in that assistance. So I'm going to go down my list of the different bits and pieces of information I researched, but there are 4 organizations in particular, by the way, that are helping companies get people back to work. And they're some of them are brand new or fairly new organizations or startups too. So one is called People Plus Work, and they're it says by Accenture. So it must be a branch or an arm of Accenture, that organization, which is a large, excuse me, well-known organization. And then there's one called PH Creative. Of course, there's LinkedIn, which I believe all of you would be familiar with. And then there's Learning and Development Cares. So that's 4 organizations that if you wanted to Google them or what have you, you could check out what they're doing to help people get back to work for those who are needing to get back to work. But I would assume that they're also helping people find work or get to work even if they've not been working, like our college students who will soon graduate. There are also many, many platforms out there, some of which you would be familiar with. And I am happy, by the way, to share all of this information with you electronically at some point. If that's of value to you, just let us know. You can reach out to us, by the way, in the Career Center at career-development@iup.edu. And actually, Kelsey, will you put that in the chat?
Yes.
Because I'm afraid I can't multitask right now. I'm afraid I'll do worse than I'm already doing, maybe. And then you could also reach out to me at tammym@iup.edu, and Kelsey will put that in there. If she wants to put hers in there, she can as well, but I don't want to volunteer that in case she doesn't want a bunch of emails. Not that, maybe none of you will email us, I don't know. So one of the platforms that IUP and many other colleges and universities use is called Handshake. And again, you may be familiar with many of these that I'm naming, but Handshake is a platform where you can post your resume, much like LinkedIn, but it's specific to IUP. And so employers who are posting jobs and internships there are posting them because they want to hire IUP students and graduates. That doesn't mean they're only posting to IUP. They're posting to other colleges and universities as well, but but they definitely have an interest in our students and graduates. So if you have not accessed your profile on Handshake, please do so, because you're already registered there because you have an IUP email. You're an IUP enrolled student. So check it out. Please take an opportunity to go on to Handshake. That's also where we do a lot of other things. So we schedule events through Handshake, though we do promote them out in other ways as well. So it's not the only way that we advertise or promote our services and events. Take a look at company and organization websites if there are particular organizations or companies you have an interest in working with, because a lot of their jobs will be posted there. LinkedIn, of course, is a great platform. It's a great platform to network, but it's also a place you can look for work, whether it's internship or job. Indeed, as I'm sure many of you know, is another fantastic platform. There's also one called Parker Dewey, and this is a newer platform, well, newer to us at least, and newer to many of those colleges and universities around the Western PA region. Parker Dewey is a place where you can look for what they're calling micro internships. So I don't know the class level of everybody on our Zoom session tonight, but if you're still looking for an internship, whether that's now or down the road, then you want to check out Parker Dewey, perhaps. They're micro internships, so they probably aren't enough hours to qualify for a full-time credit-bearing or academic credit-bearing internship that would be approved through your academic department. But you might be able to, if you work with your internship coordinator and your other academic department decision makers, you might be able to do what I would call be stackable micro internships. So maybe you do 2 or 3 micro internship experiences, and then you're able to get college credit. That has to be approved in advance, though, if you're looking for it to receive academic credit. All of those micro internships are paid. So that's kind of a bonus, because I know in certain industries, certain majors and disciplines, we don't get paid internships, which I think is horrible. So, because I think you all deserve to be paid for the work that you're doing. So check out Parker Dewey. There is a link on our website, by the way. Also, there's Career Builder, there's Glassdoor, Simply Hired, Link Up. I'm looking at my list because I could name some of these off the top of my head, but not all of them. There's one called Snag a Job, and that was new to me. I'd never heard of that before. And it's literally spelled snag, S-N-A-G-A job. So it's just, but it's all one word. Facebook Job Search, which I've not done a lot with. I know some people use it. Robert Half is a fairly reputable search firm. There are many of those out there, but Robert Half seems to be really big right now and doing a lot of great work. Dice, spelled D-I-C-E, is a good one for those looking for tech jobs. Then there's also ZipRecruiter. There's Imagine Pittsburgh for anybody who wants to stay in the Pittsburgh region. They're posting jobs there in all different industries or categories or sectors. So take a look at that. There's Monster, which is an oldie but a goodie. And there's something called The Muse. So The Muse is also a really great resource for kind of staying up to speed on what's happening in the professional world and the world at large. But they also have a little, when you get their emails, you can subscribe. When you get their emails, there's a place to click and see what current jobs or new jobs have been posted. So I'm throwing that one out there too. Something I read recently, and I think this makes sense regardless of whether or not we're in the midst of a pandemic, but you should only spend about 20% of your time or efforts on your job search on actual job search platforms. Can we guess what that other 80% of your time should be spent doing aside from preparation? Should I call on people? Riley, Heather, Kate, Melinda, is it Medina or Medina? Kristen, Taylor, Sarah, there are 2 Sarahs. Emma Frazier, nobody want to answer?
Networking.
Yeah.
Who said it? I can't even tell. Yay, thank you, Sarah.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you,
You're
Sarah
welcome.
Avery. Yeah, networking. And I know that's pretty obvious. And we talk about networking all the time. I was recently doing a career coaching appointment by phone with an alum of IUP. And she said, you know, everybody talks to me about networking. She said, but I don't even really know what that involves or what that entails. And so we talked quite a while about networking virtually, because that's all she can really do right now. And we talked about the importance of using LinkedIn and how that all works. So I could go into greater detail about networking if that's helpful, but I don't want to keep talking about something that is not helpful to those who are on this call or on this, I keep calling it a call, but in this session. So let me talk, and then please let me know. And you can write questions in chat if you have questions, if you don't want to voice them. And you can write comments in chat as well if there's information you want to share or topics that you want us to cover that I haven't covered or that I don't end up covering. Some resources that you can use as you're in the midst of a job search. And again, at any point, but especially during a pandemic, you can use PayScale, you can use Glassdoor, you can use the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's a great website to learn more about what are the jobs that are out there, what jobs are in high growth, or what jobs are high growth right now, really hiring a lot and a growing field. What jobs have a lot of vacancies? So what industries have a lot of vacancies and job openings? You can check that out as well. And then you can learn about salary information there, because sometimes it's tough. You want to come up with what's the best salary range that I can offer if I'm asked that question. And salary negotiation, by the way, is a whole other topic. We can share information with you about that. We have a resource or a handout with that information as well. You can also do some salary research on PayScale and Glassdoor that I just mentioned. There's CareerLink. That's a great resource to us. We all have CareerLink in whatever community we live in. And there's Burning Glass, but I think Burning Glass requires a subscription, and we don't currently have one at IUP, though it's something that I keep pushing for. So we'll see. Maybe one of these days soon we'll have it. And then MC that I mentioned earlier, which is the economic modeling platform. And then of course you can research employers. So make sure that if you're interested in a particular employer or you're making application to a position, make sure you're researching the employer and that you have an understanding of what they do, who their competitors are, what their issues are, what their concerns are, what their goals are. All important things to understand so that you can have an intelligent, informed conversation with an employer, whether that's in your cover letter or perhaps and hopefully in an interview as well. Questions, comments? And I do want to mention, and then I'll go back to if people have questions or comments thus far. Your Career Center is here to support you. We're here to support you now. I don't know if everybody in the session is a student or if any of you are alum, but we're here to support you now and we're here to support you as an alum. So understand that no matter what, you could be mid-career, or you could be a seasoned professional and maybe you decide to make a career change, or maybe you're just exploring options and you want a sounding board or you want some advice or some guidance, or maybe you want a resume review even later in life. We're here to do that from now into perpetuity, or somebody will be. I might not be here all those years, but somebody will be. So questions or comments, thoughts? I wish I could see your faces. Feel free to reveal yourselves. It's seemingly unfair that you can see mine. Okay.
So I have a quick question.
Yes.
I applied to a position earlier this month, within like 10 days of it being posted. And I just saw today that it was like rebumped again on LinkedIn. Does that mean that they are like, is that bad news for me that they don't like me? Or is that just we're trying to expand our search a little bit more? Just so I have an understanding of their process.
I'm sorry, yeah, it could mean all kinds of things, Sarah. So it could be that they didn't get enough applicants, and so they want to try to generate more applicants. Maybe they didn't get enough qualified applicants, and so they want to, again, generate more applications. It could be that they are trying to extend the search a little while, maybe buy themselves some time. So it could be a number of factors, but my guess is that it would probably be one of the first things that we both stated, which is that they're probably just looking to generate more applicants, more qualified applicants.
Sounds good, thanks.
Does anybody else have insight there though? Because others may have some insight.
I would say the same thing as well. I would imagine that if they're posting it on different platforms or boosting it, that they're trying to generate some more applications so they have a stronger applicant pool that they can pull from as they move through the interview process. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I think it might mean that there will be a delay you hearing from them, but I would imagine, just given any research that I've done and talking with employers, that it would be a matter of them just trying to expand their reach and see if there's additional applicants that they might have missed the first time around.
Higher education and certain other industries or areas move a little slowly when it comes to job search, that's for sure. So right now, there's some chance that most industries or disciplines will move a little more slowly than they typically would for multiple reasons. So one of the pieces of advice that we're going to offer is that we be patient. So things we can do: be patient, be gracious, not just with people in the job search, but in general. Make sure that you're being what I call appropriately bold. So really put yourself out there. It's one of the ways that you'll find your success. Be genuine with people too. So I know as we conduct interviews for different positions, or even as I sit on search committees, one of the things we're looking for in a candidate is a real person. We don't want to hear answers that just sound canned or sound like they're trying to tell us something that we want to hear or what they think we want to hear. Just be who you are, because ultimately that job search or that interviewing process, it's a two-way street. It's not just about, oh, you really want this job with this particular company. It's also about, is that a good fit for you? Do you really want that job? Once you learn more about its culture and once you meet some of the people in the organization, do you still want that job? So make sure that you're being who you are, because that's how you'll find the right fit, the right position for you. And then, of course, as I said, be gracious, be empathetic. Right now, we especially need to provide one another grace. We should always be gracious and kind. But right now, I think every single one of us needs a little extra grace, a little bit of room for error right now. So do the same with employers, because I think we're all trying to really feel our way through this experience. Reach out to your career center for assistance. We're here to help. Don't forget about us, because we're not forgetting about you. Ensure that your interviewing skills are up to snuff, so to speak, most especially virtual interview skills. And there are so many resources out there. You can Google that and find fantastic information about how you should behave in a virtual interview. A lot of it is just how you should behave in any interview. You should be dressed appropriately. You should be sitting up straight. You should occasionally lean in. You can still use your hands, even though most of the time it's probably just like head and shoulders, so they won't necessarily see your hands. And I do not recommend bringing them into the frame like this, because that makes you look a little frenzied perhaps, but you can still talk with your hands, it's okay. And gesture and so on and so forth. And use your facial expressions. Some of us are more expressive than others by nature, but don't be afraid to, again, express yourself, be who you are without getting too animated. Be animated, but not overly animated. Make sure that your Wi-Fi is working, or wherever you are. Make sure that you have a decent background. Maybe not so cluttered. Mine's pretty cluttered. Look at all that shelving bag. I have a lot of stuff on my shelves, but so you want to make sure that you have a decent background. You can even do a virtual background if you'd like, but look at Dr. Seeger's background. It looks really nice. He's in a nice office space there. And Kelsey and Bree, they're the only other backgrounds I can see. Those are nice backgrounds too. So you just want to keep something, fairly plain or professional at the very least, right? And make sure you're enunciating, and make sure that you're smiling periodically. Try to look at the camera. I keep looking over at the people that I can see on the screen, so I know I'm kind of looking off to one side most of the time. Sorry for that. I am not skilled at this. So think about things like that. And virtual interviewing is probably a lot tougher for most of us than actual face-to-face interviewing. For some people, it might be more comfortable depending on personality, but it can also be far more challenging because you really can't see the cues, the body language that you'd be able to read otherwise. Use mock interviews. We offer mock interviews through the Career Center, but you can also use online tools to practice. You can practice without us. You can practice on your pet, your parents, your friends, and you can do this, again, you can do this virtually, so you can still practice social distancing. You practice in the mirror, but make sure that you're practicing interviewing so you become very comfortable and everything is second nature. Again, some of us are better at interviewing than others. Depends on personality a lot of the time, but we can all get better. So even if we're not typically comfortable in an interview situation, which most of us are not, we can get better at it. What else do I have written here? I have tons of notes. Employee resilience. Oh, by the way, now let me go back to interviewing. I'm sorry. So we are actually in the process of looking at, and we have looked at it before, but we have, until now, we've always decided to maintain face-to-face live people mock interviews. But what we're looking to do now is either go fully or more likely complement not complement, but add to, I'm lacking the word finding issue here, add to what we currently do with a program called Big Interview, which will be a remote or virtual computerized interview. So if any of you have done an interview with some of the larger organizations like PNC and UPMC, I'm naming some Pittsburgh organizations now, or Highmark, oftentimes they'll do at least an initial interview with a program called HireView or a similar platform. Those platforms are like the Big Interview platform that we would use. So it's a great way to gain some experience doing a virtual interview. We should have that up and running soon. So if you need to do a practice interview in that way, just reach out to us and we'll see if we can't get that moving a little more quickly. Employee resilience. Right now, we need resilience more than we need probably a lot of other things. So limit your distractions so you can feel your emotions more clearly. Label your emotions. I just listened to a podcast on this, where this is coming from. Rather than ruminating on them, because sometimes I'll use a little bit of Brene Brown here, sometimes we start telling ourselves these stories that aren't accurate, right? So make sure that you're thinking positive thoughts about yourself, because that's going to be communicated in any interview you're doing, whether it's virtual or it's not. But I think sometimes it's more evident when it's virtual because you're on that screen and people don't necessarily have any place else to look but at you, right? Not to make us feel more self-conscious. Share your vulnerabilities rather than just stealing them up and forging ahead, because when we're in uncertain times like we are right now, there's one of those phrases, we really need to think through what we're feeling, and we need to write that down, or, well, I say write it down, and a lot of people would tell you journaling will help. So write it down, identify it, and then work through it. It's okay to acknowledge if we're feeling kind of uneasy about the job search and about interviewing and all of that. Acknowledge it and then move on. Acknowledge it for what it is. And then you can forge on to help yourself and help others. And also, I will throw that one out there too, because that's another thing that we can do is help other people. So do things for other people. Differentiate yourself, and you can do that in lots of ways. So I'm going to go back to kind of meditating and journaling for a second. If you can meditate and journal kind of simultaneously about what makes you unique, what makes you you, what differentiates you from perhaps other candidates for a particular job or internship, and write that down. So what knowledge, skills, abilities, and experiences do you bring that maybe somebody else doesn't bring to the table? Write that down. What knowledge, skills, abilities, and experiences do you have that an employer needs and that somebody will pay you to do? Those are important things to think about. You also need to be giving thought to how you want to live. Do you want to work 9 to 5? Do you want to work different hours? Do you want to work in an office? Do you want to work outside? Do you want to be at a desk? Do you want traditional hours, like I said earlier, 9 to 5? Or do you want a flex schedule? Do you want, where do you want to live? City, rural, somewhere in between, suburbia maybe. What kind of car do you want to drive? What kind of house do you want to live in? How do you want to dress every day? Think all of those are important factors to determine, and more, to determining what kind of job is for you, what lifestyle you're seeking. Think also about what you'd like to be able to say. So what you're doing with your time right now in the pandemic, these pandemic days, think about how you're spending your time and how you maybe should be spending your time, so that later when you look back on this pandemic and somebody says, so what did you do during the pandemic 2020? You have an answer that you're satisfied with. Because if the only answer is, well, I binged some Netflix, and if you're satisfied with that and that's what you did, that's cool. Because we all get to make our choices, right? But if that's not the answer you want to give, and that's not what would make you happy and help to advance your career, then think about that. Also, another thing that I read, by the way, was some of this I read, some of this is coming from me, but showcase your accomplishments so that you're able to demonstrate that you are, well, I'm changing this, that you are the solution that an employer is looking for, and that you have solutions for that employer. So you need to be able to think through some of the things that you have done, maybe in your student organizations, maybe in the community through community service, and in your classroom, maybe with projects and teamwork. Think through all of those things and what knowledge, skills, abilities, and experiences that gave you, and how that makes you the best candidate for a particular job or to go to work in a particular industry. So you need to be able to showcase your accomplishments and not just say that you were president of an organization or that you chaired a committee, but talk about what you did in those roles. That's important to be able to do that a little bit on your resume, a lot in your cover letter, and even more in your interviews. One piece of advice too that people are giving relative to trying to find work in a pandemic, and Sarah sort of mentioned it earlier. I don't think she's on the call or in the session right now, but she talked about maybe looking outside of her field and accepting a position. You could do that. You could also accept a temporary position.
Oh, wait, when is this supposed to end? Yeah, that's right.
Haley, I'm not sure when this is going to end. But I don't know if you have to stay on a certain amount of time either, so I don't know what the rules are here. But does anybody have questions? Because I'm talking a lot, and I'm happy to take questions or take comments from others. Anything in the chat?
I just have a quick question real quick. I am also a student athlete at school, and that seems to have helped me a lot whenever I'm applying for things and things like that. But I just want to add a quick, well, I guess a comment first, then a question. But I have had no luck with any platform, of Monster, of LinkedIn, or anything like that. But I landed a summer internship with a company that I love, and I would love to get hired by next year. But the only way I was able to do that was get a cup of coffee with someone. Then that someone leads me to somebody else. And then I went out to dinner. Then I got a cup of coffee. Then I eventually worked my way up to it. But all those other platforms just all led to dead ends for me. And I just feel like now the power of actually picking up the phone and saying hello is a much more like powerful statement to make that you're a social person than just emailing someone or just slapping your resume on one of those platforms. But I just have a question just through IUP with their alumni association. Like I have friends that go to other universities, and going into their final semester of their junior year, they were all looking for internships. So they went to their advisor, and it was kind of like, here's 3 applications. There's 3 different businesses, and there is alumni from our university there. Now, I just never got that from IUP. I don't know if that's just their advisor, but what do you do with alumni? A lot of people stay in the Pittsburgh area or Philly area. I just want to know, do you have anything like associations with that? Because I always wondered kind of where the alumni were.
Yeah, so go ahead, Kelsey. You
Well,
can speak to that.
one thing that comes to mind, well, Jessica, I love what you said about networking. I was going to make a joke if we could just hire you and have you say that, because you make our job very easy, because that's something we talk about a lot. One of our colleagues at Slippery Rock, which Tammy and I are quite competitive, but we have to give him credit. He always says, if you're not networking, you're not working. So I think what you just shared speaks to the power of why networking is important and valuable. But something that comes to mind when I meet with students and they're looking to identify alumni in a certain field or area, if you're on LinkedIn, there's a really cool feature where you can find alumni that have an active profile on LinkedIn. So the easiest way to do that is if you search Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Now, I have noticed as LinkedIn, as they update, sometimes where it's located shifts, but if you search Indiana University of Pennsylvania, currently there is a tab on the left side of the screen that says Find Alumni. And then from there, it'll pull all the alumni that have an active profile on LinkedIn. And from there, you can get really specific and narrow down. So you can see where they work, where they're located geographically, what they studied. And then from there, you could go and maybe make some connections that way, or it would at least give you some idea of where our alumni are working and are populated. So that would be free for anyone. If you do have a profile, you could go in and pretty quickly narrow down, where you're looking to be at, the industry you're looking at, and then you could make some outreach that way. Or if anything, just do kind of some general research to see where our alumni are employed.
Yeah, and Jessica, Kelsey hit it when, and so did you, that you can't just go to those platforms and put your resume out there and expect, bam, I'm getting a job. Now that does happen, but it's rare. So when I said earlier about spending only 20% of your time doing that, that's why, because and I don't even know if I'd say spend 20%. That was just one of the recommendations that I had read. I would say probably spend less time doing that and more time doing what you just said, doing some real networking, whether that's grabbing a cup of coffee or having a phone call or a Zoom session with somebody to ask them some questions, reaching out to alumni, as Kelsey just suggested, connecting with them through LinkedIn. Because most people want to help other people. And certainly alumni love to give back in that way and in other ways, but they love to give back by helping their fellow alumni and students at their alma mater. One thing that we do pretty regularly, we collaborate with the Office of Alumni and Friends, which on some campuses is called Alumni Relations. And so we do some networking events every year. There was one planned, actually there were 2 planned, I believe, for later this semester that were not able to happen because of the pandemic. So, but what I just jotted down, Jessica, because you prompted me to think of this, is perhaps we will reach out to alumni and friends. I can't promise this will actually come to pass, but I'll reach out, we'll reach out and suggest that maybe we try to do an alumni networking event virtually. Why not? We can give it a whirl, right? And that will give you potentially some opportunities or at least some connections with alumni in various regions, because we have a lot of alumni certainly in the Pittsburgh region, as you suggested, and in the Philly region, as you said. We have a lot in Washington, D.C., Florida, I want to say Texas, but I don't know if I'm making that up. I think that's accurate. I'm trying to remember the last meeting I was in where these were listed. And then we have them all over the country and all over the world, frankly. But those are a lot. We have a lot in Maryland and Virginia too, not just in the DC metro area, but in some other areas. So some in Ohio, and again, a lot of the border states, right? So we have alumni just about everywhere that you might want to find a job, truly, across the country and across the globe. So it's just a matter of connecting them. Now, if a student comes to us and specifically says, hey, I want some help. Can you help me connect with some alumni in a particular industry, in a particular part of the world or the country? We'll do everything we can to help you make that connection. But we can't know that that's what a student wants or needs, and we can't customize that experience unless a student comes to us and lets us know they want and need that. But we'll do everything we can.
Hi, I'm Kate. I'm graduating this May, sort of, if you can consider it graduating. I actually reached out to my advisor because I am looking for a job and I'm a little nervous about it. And I think she gave me a really good tip that I feel like would be good for everybody. She said to look towards businesses that are considered essential right now, because it might be easier to find a job because they're functioning semi-normally. And I think that was a really good piece of advice. So I just figured I'd throw that in there.
That's great advice, Kate. Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. I mean, the companies that are open and working and operating will continue to do so post-pandemic. And some of the areas that are really being hit hard right now, which you probably all know, but I'll say them anyhow, would be hospitality and retail. Like some of those are the industries that are being hit really hard, or recreation, entertainment. So they'll bounce back. And I'm not an economist, but I truly believe, just based on everything I've read and just based on my life experience, for what that's worth, that we're going to bounce back faster than I think some people are projecting or predicting that we will. Because I feel like once everything kind of starts to roll again, I think it's going to go quickly. I think we'll move far more quickly than a standard recession would. I don't believe that this is a standard recession. So I don't think all of the same rules will apply. I could be wrong. Time will tell. But the other thing that I want to encourage you about in that regard, from the great advice that Kate just shared, is you all are probably looking for jobs in industries and with organizations that are still functioning and or will continue to function post-pandemic and will continue to hire. So I'm less concerned, frankly, and I don't know if that brings you any comfort, but I'm less concerned about you all finding jobs than I am for some of the people who are doing a lot of the minimum wage and service industry jobs, or jobs in the service sector. Those are the folks that I think are going to have the hardest time recovering from this. I believe that you all are going to find meaningful work, and maybe initially you're going to have to accept something that is part-time or outside of your normal industry, or depending on what that is, or maybe you're going to accept a temporary position. So you go to work with Robert Half and you start out in 1 or 2 or 3 temporary positions, but then you find something permanent through that. Because much like an internship, as Jessica mentioned, oftentimes you can land a job from having done that internship because they're test driving you just the same way you're test driving them, right? Jessica, you may go to work with that organization that you mentioned you really want the job with, and you may decide after the internship you don't want the job. Or you may decide you were right, I love this place and I want this job, and they may love you and they may offer you a job. So think about everything as an opportunity, because everything really is an opportunity. It's going to be what we make it. I don't mean to sound so like an inspirational speaker there or something, but a lot of it really will be what we make it. So there are some things that we can't control. So my husband says all the time to us and our children, control your controllables. So that's especially important in a situation like this, right? Meaning a pandemic. Other comments? Somebody else had, Christina, did you have a comment? Somebody else over on this side of this, on my side of the screen anyhow, had unmuted themselves, I think, for a moment.
I was just listening.
Oh, okay. All right. That's okay. Anybody else have a comment or a question that they want to throw out there? I'd much rather hear you. That's honest.
I do agree with you. It's kind of like it's everything could be an opportunity. Just there's a million jobs out there that don't even have an application process or an interview process. Like my internship, I never once filled out a piece of paper. There was never a formal interview or anything. It was kind of like, yeah, we like you, so you should totally hang out with us this summer. And now I'm at the hospital with them all summer long. But it was kind of like a position you couldn't even apply for. So I think it's just you gotta have to like work your way up and just put yourself out there and have the self-confidence to just keep going with it and see. And then if it does roll into a job, then I never even had an interview for the job. It kind of just happens like that sometimes. So don't get so discouraged over just the jobs that have applications. Just talk to your, I guess, network people. Just talk to a friend. If it's a uncle, if it's anything, just I think always reach out.
Yeah, that's more great advice, Jessica, because you're right. A lot of jobs aren't posted. Or maybe a company has an internship or a job opportunity that they don't even know they have yet. And what I mean by that is that they maybe aren't considering filling a particular position or creating a position, but they'll do it if they meet the right person and they meet the right person who puts the idea forward. And that person shows them, hey, you know what? Have you considered hiring this position, whether again it's an internship or an actual job? Have you considered hiring this? Because here's what I think we could do with this. And if you're able to show that employer why they should have that position, they may well create it. They may create it for you, and then you get to help shape it. And that does happen more often than I think most of us realize. So that's another great point, Jessica.
I just have a quick question. So I was in contact with a company before the pandemic started, and they actually reached out to me and said that I should apply. They think I would be a good fit. And I have, and I've kind of kept a little bit of contact, but how, I guess, would you say, like, how would you know if you're being too pushy and messaging them too much and like annoying them, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a challenge. It's tough sometimes to know what the balance is, and it's even tougher right now. So what I would say in general is if an employer has given you any kind of a timeline that they're operating on, so if they've said, okay, we're accepting applications until this date, and then we're closing the application process, and then we're reviewing applicants and then conducting interviews on these dates, that at least gives you an idea of what their timeline is. If they haven't shared a timeline, then I would say you wait a week, maybe more likely 2 weeks after you've applied, and you do some outreach. My guess is, Kate, that it's longer than 2 weeks for you, right?
Yeah, I applied, I think, roughly 3 weeks ago, and I did reach out. I'm not sure if you know who WebFX is. I feel like they've been to IUP a lot.
Yeah.
I was in contact with Mr. Craig, who is the CEO of the company, and I let him know that I applied. And he said that he'll let them know to keep an eye out for my name. But I just wasn't sure at what point I should maybe be a little concerned or maybe reach out again and just see if they liked my application.
How long ago did you have contact with Mr. Craig?
I messaged him on LinkedIn a week ago just to let him know that I had applied, and he had messaged me back to let me know that he was going to let them look out for my name.
I would say then you could wait maybe another week and see what happens. And if you don't hear anything between now and then, I would reach out to him again and say, hey, I'm just touching base again because I really still have an interest in this position. I'm continuing to search, but I have a special interest in this position. And I'm wondering if you're able to give me any idea of a timeline, because I don't want to continue to, or how I'm trying to find the right verbiage right now, because I don't want to be too overzealous with my outreach to you or something to that effect. Kate, I could say that better on another day. So if you want help shaping your message, then please reach out to Kelsey or me. We can help you kind of shape what that says. And that goes for anybody else too, because we are available to you to try to help with any professional communication, but namely resumes, cover letters, and then email messages like that. So follow up. But it doesn't hurt to reach out to him again and just say you're trying to get an idea on what the timeline is, so that you're not constantly reaching out because you know he's busy, something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a question for Kelsey, actually, just quickly. Hi, my name's Kendall. I think I've been in contact with you about the Washington Center.
Oh, yeah.
I just quickly wanted to know if you knew like the main companies they place interns with, because of I tried to like look on their website, but there wasn't like a lot of information.
Yeah. So the Washington Center is operating a little differently this summer because they're doing fully remote experiences. So I know some of the companies that they would have normally sent interns to, that list has adjusted because some aren't able to or don't have the capacity to have a remote or virtual intern, and they've had to then go out and find some additional contacts. So if you want to email me, I can reach out to my contact at the Washington Center and see if they're able to provide an updated list. I know they've tried to update their website as best as possible, but I'm not sure if they were able to get all of those employers updated, because I think it's a fairly fluid situation. They're getting new employers on, at a little bit more frequent of a pace as they normally would. So I think they have some, if you would look on the website, some of the core group that they've worked with in the past, but there's definitely some additional employers that they've brought on. But I'm happy to look into that for you, Kendall.
Okay, thank you. And do you want me to send you that as a separate email, or keep the other girl that is CC'd on that?
I think it's Maureen. So you can just send a separate email, Kendall, and we'll get in touch with the Washington Center so you can get that for you.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Other thoughts or questions? I'm looking around at all of you. Some other things that we have on the list of things that we can do, and again, some of these apply regardless of pandemic, post-pandemic, but would be things like reskill, upskill, and gain some additional knowledge or increase your knowledge. So right now, if maybe, even if you are continuing your job search, which you should be, or internship search, also it does not hurt, say this summer, to do a certificate program, do some work on like Khan Academy and other platforms like that are free. What else did I write down? Maybe pursue, if not a certificate, a licensure if it makes sense. Maybe pick up a minor, something that would help to complement the work that you plan to do anyhow, but would help to make you more competitive, would maybe differentiate you a little bit among your competitors. Then, I don't know, just do some reading and research in the field that you're planning to work in, or that maybe you've done some work in. Listen to podcasts, because there's just great information there. If anybody wants some suggestions on some podcasts to start listening to, I'm happy to make those suggestions. There's one out there, and it's called, I think, The Next Big Idea. So that's a really interesting one. And some of them they range anywhere from like 10 minutes on up to like an hour or so, but there are a lot of other podcasts that are maybe 10 minutes, average of 10 minutes, and they just give you tons of little tidbits of information and tips and things that are valuable to everyday life as well as professional life. Start your own podcast. How about that? Actually, Mr. Turner's wife, Dr. Malika Turner, has her own podcast. So I believe it's called Pivot. So there's one right there. There's a great one right there to listen to, but also to follow suit and create your own podcast, right? I always say there's no time like the present. If you have a big dream, start now. Don't wait until you're like me, 37, wink, wink, because I'm older than that, I guess you can tell. But don't wait until you were older. Start now. Start pursuing your dreams now. I don't know. Subscribe to newsletters. One of the newsletters I will recommend to you that you can subscribe to, and just it'll come to your inbox every day, and they have a variety of industries or topics or disciplines that are all separate. So you can end up getting 10 different ones every day. It's called Smart Brief, smartbrief.com. And they have so much information. There's Smart Brief, they have Smart Briefs in workforce, leadership, education, higher education. I can't think of all of them, but those are some of them. And you can just, again, get a lot of great information in little snippets, because they give you a title, and with the title, they'll give you a little synopsis of the actual article. Some of the articles have embedded video links and that kind of thing, and also embedded links for other articles. So just continue to educate yourself and stay in the know, so that when you do land that interview or interviews, that you can talk about all kinds of different things and bring some new information into the interview and have, again, an intelligent conversation. Engage in new hobbies, old hobbies, whatever. Engage in hobbies that will be career relevant, perhaps. And again, maybe engage in some things that are going to provide service to others, service to the community, because that'll not only make you feel good, it'll help the world, and it'll be something that you can talk about in a cover letter, on a resume, and in an interview. Use your media, social media in particular, LinkedIn more so, to establish yourself as an expert in a particular area or on a particular topic. That will help you to drive some connections out there as well. Part of networking on LinkedIn is engaging with people in a meaningful way. And sometimes that can be challenging when you're not in person, but one of the ways that you can help to advance a relationship with somebody on LinkedIn is to even just start a conversation with them or share an article that you think might be of interest to them based on what they do for a living, based on what you're interested in doing for your career. Look for opportunities to offer and to bring value to other people, to organizations, and just simply offer to help anybody in any way that you can. Sometimes we think we don't really have anything to offer others. Like maybe some of you were thinking, how am I going to help somebody else? Or how am I going to help a seasoned professional in the field that I want to work in? But you probably have more to bring to the table than what you realize. And again, that's where maybe you have a career coaching session with Kelsey or me or another career coach in our career center, and we can help you to talk through and think through some things like this. And of course, network online. Like that's definitely one of the things we've been talking a great deal about. A couple of you have already mentioned it. Kelsey talked more about it as well. But you can't probably have enough of a presence on LinkedIn. That is the platform, the foremost platform relative to professional networking. So if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, make sure you develop one. If you want help with that, we can help you with that. We also have a handout or a resource that you can find on our website, which is www.iup.edu/or/, I never know which is which, career. So if you just go to the IUP website, you can find the Career Professional Development Center. But we have a bunch of resources there that can help you in any professional area, just about any professional topic you can think of. Indeed, by the way, there's a little campaign, maybe a big campaign happening on Indeed.com, and it's basically called Ready to Work, #Ready to Work. And this is where I just learned about this actually. They are telling people that the users on Indeed can tag themselves as #Ready to Work, and to let employers know that they're available immediately for a job. So what better way to let people know, hey, I'm available, I want a job, I want to be employed, than to do that. So put yourself out there and tag yourself that way. And you can do that on Indeed, but you could also even do it on LinkedIn. Put something out on LinkedIn, do a post that says, hey, I'm ready to go to work here. I'm looking at all kinds of stuff here. So there's a ton more information I could share with you. I know that some of you probably will want to log off or need to log off closer to 7 o'clock, and I understand that. And I'm pretty much at the end of my notes, but I have a lot of articles that I can share with you that might have some interesting information. I have, again, a ton of notes here that I took from many of these articles and some from my own head, and Kelsey and I have had conversations about all of this too. To go back to kind of the question that I think now it was Kate asked about if you don't hear back from an employer. So you're in the midst of your job search, you're really not hearing anything back. It's important to stay positive. So don't start telling yourself stories like I'm not worthy, or they don't want me, or they're better candidates, because you're an IUP student and soon to be graduate perhaps. And IUP creates a great product. I have every confidence. I don't have to know you to know that you're going to go out and do great stuff, because we produce fantastic graduates for all kinds of reasons. And some of it is about the students that we recruited in the first place, right? So with that in mind, keep telling yourself positive things. If you need a pep talk, reach out. I'm happy to give you a pep talk. Again, I don't have to know you. I'll pep you up. I don't know, not pep you up. I'll hype you up. I don't know what word I'm looking for. I don't know the current lingo perhaps, but what else? Oh, so it's not going to be unlikely at all. It will be very likely that there will be delays in the hiring process right now. And that, again, will vary from institution to institution, organization to organization, industry to industry. So expect that and just go with it. And where you can find out what the timeline is, as we said earlier, try to get the timeline. don't be afraid of being too pesty or annoying, as Kate mentioned earlier. Probably the only way you're going to be that annoying is if you're reaching out to somebody every single day. If you reach out every week, maybe every 2 weeks, that's okay. That's acceptable. And maybe when you reach out, say, hey, I'm just touching base to check on the status of the search. Hey, and also here's an article I thought you might enjoy. Find an article. Maybe you found it on Smart Brief. Share the article with them because it's relevant to their career, their industry. Looking quickly, if you need a job right away, by the way, there are many organizations hiring, but two of the biggies, as you all probably know, would be Amazon and Walmart. They're hiring anywhere from 100,000 to 150,000 workers right now. So actually, Amazon's supposedly hiring 100,000, Walmart's hiring 150,000. I'm not saying that you necessarily want to spend your career in retail at Walmart or in Amazon in whatever capacity, customer service, for instance, you might be working to start. But it's a way to make some connections and it's a way to make some money and demonstrate work ethic. Okay. That's probably it. I mean, there's other, as I said, there's other information that I could share here, but I've covered a lot of it. I don't know if though you have questions, and we're happy to take additional questions, comments, suggestions. Let us know also, how can we help you? What do you need from us? Because we're not mind readers. We try to know what our students and what our graduates need, but we don't always know. So please let us know how we can help you. If you don't have ideas that you want to share now, email them to us. Send us a message in Facebook, whatever, on Instagram. Just reach out and let us know how we can help you, because that's what we want to do. We want to support you. We want you to find your success, however you define it.
Just a quick question. My parents have been wondering a lot of the same questions that I have, and you covered a lot of them in this chat. Will this be posted online that they could watch this after the fact?
Yes.
Yes, we, Kelsey or Bree, both of them maybe are recording it. And so we'll put it out in various places. I think the Multicultural Center for Student Leadership and Engagement will put it out on their website, on Facebook actually, not their website, maybe on your website too. And we'll put it out probably on our website as well as Facebook and maybe on LinkedIn. Oh, by the way, join two LinkedIn groups in particular. One is IUP Career Development and Networking, IUP. And the other one is IUP Alumni. And if you don't know where those are, maybe Kelsey will put those in chat too, or I could add those in chat myself now. But those will be places where sometimes we're posting jobs. Sometimes alumni will post jobs there. Sometimes they'll just reach out and have a conversation. But it's a great way to connect with some IUP alumni and some employers in either one of those two groups on LinkedIn. Yeah, and if you're not following us on social media, please do. So we are, our Facebook is IUP Career and Professional Development Center. Kelsey, correct me on anything I'm wrong on, because they have changed a couple times. On Instagram and Twitter, we are at IUP_CPDC. And what am I missing? I mentioned our LinkedIn group. Is that it? Am I missing any of our social media?
Nope, you're good.
We're planning to open a TikTok account, and by the way, if you know any undergrads who will be here another year or two at least, if not more, we're going to be looking to hire for fall a social media marketing or more, maybe a couple of those folks to work in our department as undergrad students. Career development advocates is what we call all of our student employees. Other questions, comments, thoughts, advice, what you need, how we can help? Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. See, I'm zooming a lot. Feel free to remember to reach out to us for a career coaching appointment or any guidance that you feel you need. And again, we welcome your suggestions for the types of programming and services that we need to be offering to help you. When I say that we want to help you, that comes straight from my heart. None of us working in higher education do this because we make $1 zillion. We do this because we love the work we do. We love helping other people, and especially helping our students, because we are IUP proud. And corny. I'm corny too. Well, okay, if there's nothing, if nobody else has anything that they want to add right now or ask, then I thank you so much for tuning in tonight. And I thank you for spending time with us because your time is valuable. Let us know how we can help and support you. Again, reach out career-development@iup.edu or tammym@iup.edu or Kate, I don't know if Kelsey put it, it's in chat, right?
Yeah,
It's in chat. We'll also put that out when we post the video. We'll put some other information out there so you know how to reach us should you choose to reach us. Okay?